Today's episode is brought to you by NAIM Audio, the iconic British hi-fi brand. Since 1973, NAIM has engineered and handcrafted amplifiers, streaming systems, and more, delivering authentic sound that takes you closer to the music you love. Discover the NAIM difference at NAIMAUDIO.com. Today's episode is also sponsored by Schiit Audio. Schiit Audio designs and builds audio components in California. Based in Valencia, their wide line of amps, DACs, and audio accessories fit any budget, starting at $49. For a full rundown of all their products, visit SCHIITdotCOM or stop by their retail store in Old Newhall, just north of Los Angeles. That's www.SCHIIT.com. You have tuned into the Season 5 premiere, Episode 1. Very exciting, and also exciting for the show. We have the PartTimeAudiophile creator, publisher himself, Scot Hull, with us. Thank you so much for joining, man.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Just so you guys know, Scott actually had the opportunity to trek across the United States and reset up his entire listening room. And I just wanted to kind of kick off the episode asking you, of that experience, do you have any room setup tips? Maybe something that you've learned over the years, or maybe something that you learned from this particular experience that you could share with the guests?
Yeah, don't do it. Moving in a pandemic was never fun. I think it was something like 10 tons of audio gear that I had to move from one place to another. And not kidding, it was a lot of weight. But I had to stage it, put it someplace, and figure out what parts I want to use and which parts we're going to hold on to for some other project or whatever. So storage is my first recommendation. The thing that I think I tend to aim for now, knowing what I do now, is wide. I'm looking for width of the wall. I know a lot of us have rooms. We have what we have. We have to make it work. So I've had rooms that were like 10 feet wide and rooms that were 20 feet wide. And looking at all of the audio show rooms that we've wandered through over the last, 10 years, Brian? I honestly think that the single biggest change in setup that had the most profound impact in sound quality for me was using the long wall. Finding the longest wall possible, the widest separation between the two speakers, going from like 6 or 7 feet apart to going to 16 feet apart was incredible in the amount of sound stage, I just love it. It's amazing. I can't recommend it enough. I picked this up from Greg Roberts and the Volti audio setup. He's always got them as far apart as his room will allow. And it just makes an incredible difference. So that's recommendation number one. I think the next one, a lot of folks are really high on room treatments. And, when you talk about the most important component in an audio system, right, they're going to tell you it's the room. And I think that's maybe overstating things, because the upshot of what they're trying to tell you is that what you need to do is control the room, stuff it full of room treatments. And I want to recommend not doing that, actually not doing too much of that. Yeah, you may need some room treatments, but don't go bananas. To take a very measured, less is more kind of approach to room treatments. Otherwise, you'll end up feeling like you're in a coffin. It's just too dead. It's too dead. So that's number two. Number three, make sure you've got space for stuff, right? The whole claustrophobic element, I can't get over. I don't want to be in a space that's too claustrophobic. So I like to have kind of room around me to kind of breathe. So having, walls of LPs kind of closing in on me is cool for photography, but unless there's space, I get a little nuts. But it kind of relates to my last and final point, which is make sure that space is not just a space for you. It should be a space that you could enjoy, have somebody over, maybe a family member, maybe a friend. fun to sit and listen to your music. And God knows, with the pandemic, having some place to go has been really delightful. But it's cooler. It's more fun if I can do it with somebody. So don't just set it up so that you have exactly one audio chair and that's the only thing to sit in the entire room. I think if that's where you end up, something has gone awry. So that's kind of what I shoot for. There's a lot of formulas for, like, how much space you should have around your speaker, how far from the wall it should be. And there are setup guys who will be really, really specific about this micron or that centimeter or whatever it is that you have around it. But if you've got time, then that's something you just dial in. And you kind of do it to taste. So anyway, those are my big recommendations.
Every speaker obviously is a little bit different, but like, where do you sit in terms of, generally speaking, toe in for your speakers? Do you go flat with the wall, pointing right at you in a perfect isosceles triangle? What is your general terms for most of the speakers you have in terms of toe in?
For most of them, it's usually pointed either directly at my ears or over my shoulders. But that's, how do I say this? It's more important to get the recommendation from the manufacturer. I mean, there are some guys who will tell you that their speakers are designed to be kind of fired straight out from the wall. No toe in at all, right? Mm-hmm. So that they are actually hot sounding if they are towed in directly at your ears. They get that kind of off-axis melding better if they're fired straight out into the room. Some will tell you the opposite. And I think that's a designer thing. I've had some really cool setups where the speakers cross. If you draw a direct line perpendicular to the face of the speaker, the lines will intersect behind the listener. That's generally what my normal expectation is. But I've also had some tell me that, at least for some setups, if you cross them in front of you, it may actually sound better. And this is I think a room dependent maybe, but I try them all out and see what you get. I've seen folks, though, kind of be really, really rigid about it and say that this is the way it should be. This is the only way it should be. I think that is only true if you're locked in a certain brand. I know Wilson Audio has a real specific formula for how to set up their speakers for optimal listening. And given how precise their speakers are, I think that following their advice is generally a good idea, and then tweak from there. But so the answer to your question is, it depends. Is that a cheat? That's a cheat.
2020 was a bit of a roller coaster of a year.
That's a really gentle way of putting it. Roller coaster, as in no more rails. The cart is off the rails. We're flying into space and possibly hitting large inanimate objects on the way down. Awesome. That's a good way to maybe think about the roller coaster.
A much better description, for sure. Where do you kind of see, from your perspective, I know you don't have access to like sales numbers or anything like that, but where do you kind of feel the audio industry ended up in 2020? So where are we now, let's just say, in 2021?
From the perspective of a reviewer, putting on my Karnak the Magnificent hat or grabbing my Nostradamus ball of seeing, I don't know what 2022 is really going to look like. 2021 is probably going to look a lot like 2020. It's going to be a while before there's going to be significant changes. And I say that 2021, at least the last half of 2020 into 2021, I don't think it was a bad year for high-end audio. I think that, in fact, a lot of manufacturers had kind of banner years. Part of that, I think, is that there was a lot of folks at home trying to figure out a way to make home more tolerable. If I'm going to be there that much, maybe it should suck less. Maybe. I don't know. But I know that there are a lot of dealers out there who did really, really well in 2020. And I don't see any reason for that to change. I also know, however, that a lot of dealers and manufacturers kind of prepped for the apocalypse by trimming. So there's a lot of folks that like household audio names, if that's a thing, are no longer associated with some of their iconic brands, and that's I don't believe is going to change. I think that 2021 is still going to stay kind of pared down. I don't think that success ever really invites change. So folks that kind of streamlined, if you will, right-sized, if you will, for 2020's pandemic reality, I don't think they're going to rush out and do anything different. I think there's still a lot of folks kind of holding their breath, waiting for changes in the administration, changes in the global economy, changes in whatever metric that they are particularly clued into. Whatever it is, there's nothing current on the horizon aside from the United States' inauguration of a new administration. It's not real clear what that will do to the economy, though. So depends on who you talk to. And I think that's what we're waiting for, are numbers before anything significant will come from that. But for me and what I see, I think high-end audio will kind of continue on. And this is maybe a little counterintuitive. I think that in high-end audio today, aside from the giant brands, companies like, Sonus Faber, Wilson, Bowers and Wilkins, some of these other big companies. So aside from them, a lot of the brands we see at audio shows are little companies, little tiny companies, mom and pop shops, if you will, part-time affairs. And their success or lack thereof in 2020 and 2021, I think will be more dependent on the success of their full-time jobs, if that makes sense. That I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of change from the little companies. So I think this is not necessarily good or bad. It's just kind of both at the same time. So I don't think we're going to see a big change on that front. High-end audio shows, I think, will probably attempt to start. I know there's a lot of folks out there right now with a lot of optimism that we're going to be able to be together in 2021, have an audio show. In fact, I think we've got 5 or 6 scheduled starting in August and moving through the back half of the year. A lot of folks reorienting to that part of the calendar. And there's an optimism there, and I appreciate that optimism. I like it. I'm in the business of optimism. However, it is optimism, right? It's not reality. We'll see how it goes. Hope is not a strategy, of course, but we have this sense that right now we don't know how bad things are. And while we have some, light at the end of the tunnel, it's not clear how deep that tunnel is at the moment. So, long way of saying, I believe that it's quite likely we'll be seeing a uptick in the audio show circuit, but it may be a blip, it may be a one-off, and it may be poorly attended. We will see. I think 2022 is going to be more strongly coming back than 2021.
I haven't heard of anybody, but are you aware of any small loudspeaker companies that shuttered their doors over the pandemic, or is everybody still alive and kicking to your
I don't think anybody has rolled over, right? Again, I think part of this is a function of the fact that most of these companies are very, very small organizations, and they just kind of get money a different way or hold up. There are quite a few. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to downplay how hard this has been for a lot of those folks. But I don't know anybody who's irrevocably retired, other than the folks that we've actually lost during the pandemic, like EAR founder Tim DePeravicini, which is just horrible, and a couple of other folks we've lost along the way. So those brands may not be coming back, at least in the shape that they're currently in. But we'll see, right? We'll see. I think that's really the only message I have right now is when it comes to future looking, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I like the optimism. I don't like to argue with optimism. I think it's an amazing. I think it's an amazing motivator. Let's stay optimistic. There's no reason to be nasty, people. Let's be happy.
Well, yeah, look, you hope for the best and plan for the worst. So right now, I think a lot of folks are still planning for the worst. So not a lot of investments are kind of running out there. I'm not seeing a lot of people rolling out brand new product releases. There's a lot of supply chain issues still from overseas suppliers. And I think that's throttled a lot of what would normally be enthusiastic kind of PR and whatever. Mm-hmm. And that kind of slowing, that kind of lengthening of the development chain will also not help. But 2021, I think a lot of this will start right sizing again, correcting back to pre-COVID, and that's what I'm looking for.
I think that you have a good point there, because a lot of the products that I saw released in the past year, they very much seemed like they were already planned, and they're like, okay, should we launch this or should we not? And they end up launching them. But I didn't really see unexpected things, right? I saw products that were, like this is the next one in the chain. You probably had this planned a year out.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything like that looked like it had been R&D'd at the beginning of the pandemic come out. Boom. I mean, there's obviously some exceptions, but it's been curtailed, to say, from my perspective at least.
Yeah, this whole we're gonna do less with more, or was it do more with less? That's the one. Do more with less, I think, is going to be the theme for right now, and cautious rollout as all of the global indicators turn in the way that we all want them to go. So fingers crossed, 2021's my year. And if not, 2022 is going to be my year. And if not, 2023 is my year. I'm just going to keep these things rolling out, because I'm sick to death of staying cooped up, being cooped up. I know it's the right thing to do. I know it's the thing I have to do. But in my heart, I am ready to start traveling again.
He's ready. Are you ready, Scott? Yeah, we talked about external sales, and we talked about kind of what we've seen from a PR perspective. From the website perspective, did this past year, did people go to the site more? Did they kind of were they swamped by the regular news cycle, or how were things on that level?
Yeah, I think with all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt in national politics and health news and I don't know, pick a metric, doesn't matter. There's a lot of fear, and I think one of the benefits of being a publishing outfit is that folks had time and decided to spend some of that time with us. And it sounds a little kind of almost ghoulish, but 2020 was the best year ever for PartTimeAudiophile. We saw traffic increase something like 30% year over year. It was a big jump. So our biggest quarter yet was third quarter. So we closed out the year on a huge uptick. Our average traffic is maintaining that level. I think 2021 will be another growth year for us. All of our numbers, all of our metrics are pointing at good trends. And we're seeing a lot of support in online tracking tools, comparing us to our beloved competitors. I'm happy with that. And I'm also kind of encouraged. Our readership at PartTimeAudiophile is predominantly North American. And I say that predominantly in the sense that that's the largest block. But it's not even half, right? Half of our traffic is worldwide, which is great. We're read all over the place. And I'm tickled, right? So the new team that we've got in place, we put this together over the last several years. Mark Phillips has really kind of stepped in to the editor's role, and we've had something along the lines of 75 audio reviews of audio equipment that we did in 2020, which is awesome. It's just awesome for an online publication. We put out hundreds of articles. And some other new folks like Grover and Dave McNair and Nan Pincus added to the larger portfolio of writers. We've actually got a pretty cool group of folks contributing. And it's been great. So even without audio shows, they generate incredible amounts of cool stuff to write about. Even without those in 2020, we crushed it. I mean, I feel funny even talking about it, given all of the world events that were going along right on top of that. But yeah, 2020 was great for us. And I think 2021 will be significantly better. We're going to spend a little time, a little effort, a little money, kind of refresh how we appear online. So hopefully we'll have some new stuff in the next couple of months in terms of the website and the magazine and so I'm playing a little close to the chest right now. But yeah, we've got some good stuff in store. Lots of really cool gear. Lots of really interesting brands. And we're going to be making pushes on not just social media, but different formats. So you'll be seeing us more. And I'm going to apologize right now. None of that time you're getting back. It's just all going to be gone. So yeah, we're going to take more and more of your day in 2021 and 2022.
All right, lightning round. 1-word answers. Are you ready?
No.
All right, here we go. Favorite right now in this moment. First thing that comes to your mind, favorite speaker.
Tidal is my favorite speaker. Favorite amplifier right now. I'm still a Border Patrol guy. I really like those.
Headphones or loudspeakers?
Yeah, for me, it's loudspeakers.
Do cables make a difference?
Yes.
Does power conditioning make a difference?
Absolutely.
Favorite type of ice cream?
Chocolate chip mint.
Good answer. Favorite song you're listening to right now, not based on quality?
Portugal the Man. I've been listening to. I Feel It Still. I still like that band. They came out that song came out over a year ago, but it's still fun.
Favorite song to test out an audio system?
Fanfare for the Common Man by Copland, and that's the Minnesota recording from Reference Recordings.
Hard dome or soft dome tweeter?
Soft.
Completely neutral or tweak it to have a little fun sometimes?
I'm not wed to perfect neutrality.
Is the idea of absolute sound complete bullshit?
Total bullshit.
That's all I got. I like that.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
And don't forget, guys, to check out PartTimeAudiophile.com. It's spelled just like it sounds. And there's plenty of fun stuff. Like I said, they got reviews cranking out like you wouldn't believe. And thank you again, Scott, for helping us intro the new season, man. We're looking forward to it. And we're looking forward to see all you guys, too. Hopefully we do get a couple of shows, and Scott and I can get to see you come up and say hi. So
looking forward to it, Brian. Looking forward to it, man. Take care, and good luck with the season. Looking forward to that, too.
Yeah. Today's episode is also sponsored by INNOUS. INNOUS develops high-fidelity digital music players that are transforming the way we listen to music. Every nuance and detail is revealed, allowing one to experience their music like never before. Enjoy your own library of CDs and high-resolution files, and access to all the content in the world through streaming services and internet radio. All at your fingertips through an exceedingly simple user interface on a mobile device. Visit INNOUSdotCOM to learn more. That's www.INNOUS.com. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. A very special guest today. One of my favorite digital designers, Mike Moffat of Schiit Audio. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You know, I've done a lot of these podcasts, and a lot of the times we like to talk about more technical things. But I think for this particular episode, I'd like to know a little bit more about, your journey, because you've had some ups and downs recently. You've had a bit of a wrestle with some health issues. And I kind of wanted to just see if we could capture a snapshot of your life and kind of tell people about, what your experience has been. So if you're cool with it, I'd like to kind of kick it off by asking you, where were you born?
I was born in just north of Berkeley, California, a place called El Cerrito.
Where'd you spend most of your childhood?
Spent most of my childhood in Los Alamitos, California, which was rural at that time. And we had chickens, ducks, goats, a couple pigs. We didn't have any horses, but our neighbors did, and then there were cows all over the place. So it was sort of a urban farm, so to speak.
Do you know what it's like to cook a chicken from a live specimen?
Oh, yeah, my dad used to make me kill ours.
I find it interesting because my grandmother, when she was telling me stories from her childhood, she would say that the only way to get a fresh chicken was to have it arrive live because they didn't really have very good refrigeration and processing wasn't quite there. So,
yeah, it was. But he had to feather him, which is really a worse job.
Oh yeah.
Well, actually, neither one of them is very good, but they taste good. And
I've never had a chicken that was that fresh in my entire life. If you think about it that way, right?
Well, funny. Years later, when I went to Peru, you go to the markets and they have chickens running around, and then they ask you which one you want, and then they ask you whether you want it killed, whether you want it feathered, and it was just, I was thinking, wow, that's going to taste really good because those chickens taste really good.
Do you think that food tasted better back then? Because there's some people who have said food is the overall flavor of things because of the preservatives and such have degraded over time. Do you think it was fresher back when you were younger?
Well, I've lived in a lot of different places, and I remember when I went to Peru, it's more farm fresh, and it tastes good and everything else, and I came back home and it was like, it tasted like ass. Yeah.
So when did you get kind of into the position where you thought, hey man, I want to work in audio, or how did you first get into music, or first decide to move that direction towards acoustic things?
Well, I first got interested in music when I was probably teens, and don't get me wrong, I liked rock, but I also really got hooked on classical.
Do you play any instruments?
No. Well, I used to play banjo before I broke my hand, but that's not very classical. And bluegrass banjo. I remember, a few years later when I was in college, everybody liked to smoke dope and listen to rock, and it wasn't that I didn't like to listen to rock, but I liked to get drunk and listen to classical music. So I was kind of like the odd guy out that way, but really liked the music.
When you went from high school to college, did you have some type of musical transformation, or was it, what year was it? Let's start there.
Let's see. I graduated in high school in 1966. Wow.
That's a good. Now I have to say that is a good year to graduate high school from a musical standpoint. I can't speak to anything else.
Great.
You're 68's coming up. You're hot and heavy in some, what I would think a lot of people would consider some of the best music ever.
Yeah. Particularly, the rock music was really, really, really good. Janis Joplin. I was at Monterey because I got sent to Vietnam, and I was in Georgia, and I drove across the U.S., and I can't remember, I think it was 10 days to leave. So I went north, and I didn't even know about Monterey. Went to it and saw it. And
you're talking about the Monterey Music Festival?
I didn't see all the days of it, but I saw.
Did you see the Jimi Hendrix?
No, I didn't.
Burn?
No, I didn't miss that one. Yeah, I think he was the end of the show.
Yeah.
But I had to get back.
But did you say you saw Janis Joplin at that show?
Yeah.
Because I've seen that performance, and it is
just amazing.
breathtaking. Yeah. It's something special. I want to look at the footage, see if you're in there.
Yeah, look in there. Yeah.
Were you wearing an identifying hat or anything like that? Do you remember what you were wearing? That's a really tough question.
Well,
what were you wearing?
I was the guy with short hair because I was in the Army.
Oh, yeah.
And Army would, so I guess everybody thought it was a narc or something. But
what was it like during that time? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, but I think it was a much different time and different place. You're going into the Army, and the music is so vibrant. There's so much culture going on. What's your kind of take on the whole scene at that point?
Oh, I love the music. Just love the music. I mean, I say I love rock. I'm psycho over classical, but I love rock. And that, the whole kind of Buffalo, Springfield era, and about 5 years after them, for all the changes that Neil Young made and Richie Furay made, just how those groups of musicians just sort of evolved into totally different sounding things that were really good. The song "Teach Your Children" on the Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young, Taylor, and Reeves album was actually the pedal steel was Jerry Garcia. That's him.
Yeah.
I never knew he played a pedal steel.
But he did a couple of bluegrass things after, in between his things.
Yeah.
So he was definitely into that kind
Yeah.
of musical genre as well. You had mentioned in another interview that you are a fan of the Grateful Dead as well. How many concerts have you been to?
Not that many, maybe 10.
10's pretty good.
Yeah.
I know there's some crazy Deadheads out there with crazy numbers, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you had said you've seen any other artist 10 times, I think people would be like, that's quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have what do you think kind of appreciate most about their music, or at least the scene they had going on at the time?
I loved their music because of its spontaneity. It was just kind of different. Maybe I'm still a big fan of Americana today. Maybe because they're just vaguely hint of country, and maybe because it's where I grew up. I mean, I can't stand pop country, hat singers, all that kind of. That's just not. Yeah. But I really like Americana. Somebody like Lucinda Williams. It's like, oh my God, you listen to she writes all her songs. She's amazing. And there's many other amazing Americana type people as well, but they're just they're just so scared. John Prine, that sort of thing. I just love.
So after you came back from Vietnam, were you already working in some type of audio application, or did that come later?
I was modifying a few amps for friends and things. I wasn't making any significant money out of it. Buying my own tubes and so on and so forth. I was, let's see, came back from Vietnam. Then I just sort of hated working at Douglas in a cube with a bunch of nerdy engineers on solenoids for aircraft, and yuck. And then I went to Peru because a friend of mine went down there and got a job as a sort of a geodigital electronic engineer. And I went down there and did it, and made $80,000 a year in 1973 or 4. It was a ton of money. And then I went down to Peru and went out in the jungle, and nobody was shooting at you, and it was just absolutely amazing. The freedom out there is just, it's just. I mean, we worked 20 on, 10 off, 20 on, 10 off, and then the 10 days off, we had a ticket anywhere we wanted in South America. So I went to Buenos Aires and watched the tangos. I went to Chile. I went to Bolivia. I even went to Paraguay, which is the poorest country down there. went to Brazil for Carnival, which makes Mardi Gras look kind of like a popcorn fart or something, you know.
Oh my goodness! My grandfather uses that expression.
Does he?
I haven't heard it in years. That was his expression. Popcorn fart. I love it.
Yeah, that's Midwest.
Yeah.
Old guy, Midwest. So
how long were you in Peru for?
I did a year. Then I traveled around, bummed around South America for another couple of years, spent all my money. Then I came back and did another year and came home. So I came back home about 76? 7?
So you're in your 20s still, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you're still a young guy. You experienced the world, I mean, in a couple of different ways, right? You got some money in your pocket. You lived some life. What do you do when you come back to the States at this point?
Well, I got a girlfriend that became my first wife, so you know how that kind of stuff goes. And then I figured I started my first company, which was Theta Electronics, and we built tube preamps and a tube power amp and a tube head amp.
So what inspired you to make that shift into high-end audio so early on, too?
Because I loved high-end audio, and because everybody was making all these tube preamps that were exactly the same. They had all the same kind of circuits in them. But I did one with no feedback. That was passive. That was passive equalization, and it sounded completely different. And then I wondered why in audio products they use 12 AX7s, which are real shit tubes. They're designed for, like, the phonographs that, you know, the little cheap phonographs that, you know, where they'd play school stuff. And I use 60 J8s, which Hewlett-Packard and Tektronix used for good test equipment, and it was pretty good sounding. Sold a bunch of them. And then I got sick and tired of paying California taxes and moved to Florida. And then went out there and kept the company going. And then and it, you know, ran for a while, ran for 3-4 years. And then my first wife and I broke up the company too. And then came back to California, tried some other places because, you know, I'd always wanted to try this and try that. And the problem was wherever I went, whether it was, you know, Japan or South America or South Africa, no matter where I went, there I was. And so I came back home, and then I worked in a stereo shop for a while just because I was hooked. You know, it didn't pay that much, but I was hooked on the gear.
So after owning your own company and doing that whole rigmarole, you scaled back and just kind of like sold some audio equipment. That's awesome. I think that's cool.
I did that for a while, not for a long time. You know, and I told the person on the shop I wouldn't be there probably more than a year or two, and he was cool.
Yeah.
And then
so at this point you're like really smitten by this.
Oh, I'm hooked on audio. But I figured that I wanted to do something that was completely different, and I knew digital audio was coming and so on and so forth. So I got this idea, since Sony was talking about putting digital outs on stuff in the very early 80s, that I would build a D to A converter, because CD players at the time had really shitty DACs and sounded really just awful. You know?
Yeah, that's something I hear all the time, is that there were the DACs that came, or the CD players that came out, they were like the first kind of digital sources, but in particular, the DAC chips were garbage. That they didn't put it, and it was like the fault mostly of the thing. It wasn't the CD spinning or the platform itself, or the fact that we had converted it to ones and zeros on a disc, but the fact that these DACs that they put in were like didn't put enough consideration into how they would control the output of the sound, because
Right.
I feel like a lot of guys are saying bits are bits. They say bits are bits. It's like a common argument with a lot of the digital guys. Do you think that bits are bits in the way that they're talking about, like?
No, I mean, yeah, bits are bits. Yeah, it's true, and you get roughly the same looking picture. But if you put it on different kind of paper, it looks different. And the problem is you don't just get pure bits only in a entire audio chain. So, there's a lot of room, a lot of wiggle room to make stuff sound good or sound bad, either because you tried to do it or because it didn't work, and you failed, but or you have problems. But yeah, that goes on. And anyway, just to finish the story, so Theta started Theta Digital, and I sold D-to-A converters, which turned out to be the first one. And I didn't even think about it at the time, but I didn't want to start a company unless it was doing something that other people didn't. And we did that, and that went on for years until we hit surround sound, and then surround sound sounded like ass. Really sounded like ass. Because there were some movies I kind of liked, but I'd always liked the old artistic kind of movies, like Bergman movies and Louis Buñuel movies, and really strange, odd movies. And they didn't have that, the bullets going over your head and all that crap. So I figured, well, nobody's really making an all digital surround sound processor except Lexicon, which is really only half. And I tried doing some of that for a while, but never really got super off the ground. And then I started doing film archiving stuff for Hollywood, but I hated that because I didn't like films. I'm the kind of guy that wanted to have fun, because I had fun all the time I was doing audio. And then Jason came along and said, "Hey, how about headphones?" And I said, "Well, how about them?" And he says, "Well, there's good ones." And I went, "Oh, there are?" And because all they had back in my day were costs. He gave me a couple of headphones, says, "Look, I got this amp. Let's build a DAC, da-da-da-da-da." And I hadn't built a DAC at that point in about 20 years or so. I had a long time, 15 years. And I said, "Okay, let's do it." And we started Schiit, and that's the way it is. And
So you had met Jason previously. Had worked together?
Oh yeah, Jason was almost my. When I was doing Schiit, Jason was working for Sumo, and Schiit was kind of like this company where everybody was happy and they had bonuses and they were having fun with audio.
You mean Theta?
Theta.
Yeah.
Theta. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries.
Back then, and he was going, "Wow, how do you do that?" Because he was back in his 20s then, maybe 30s. And so years later, he says, "Hey, come on aboard. Let's do this." So he talked me into it, and we did it. And then I sort of relearned the whole thing again. And I'm having fun, but I'm old. I don't want the. I've had 1, 2, 3 companies and ran them all. And when you get older, you just want to get back and have fun. And the most fun's building the toys.
I was going to ask, what do you? I mean, if you put pay aside, of all the things that you've done, what would you do if really pay wasn't part of the issue?
Exactly what I'm doing now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who spend a lot of their life trying to move up the corporate ladder and get to a management standpoint. Where do you kind of land in managing things? Or like, you've owned several companies. Do you kind of feel, you're saying making the toys is the fun part? Do you think that managing a company is a kind of a drag in and of itself outside of the obviously financial perks?
No, it's just not as much fun as building the toys. And like I say, I'm 72. I don't know, how much longer I have, but I just want to build toys all the way. I mean, 10 years ago, I was thinking, how much longer do I have? I want to have fun.
Yeah.
And I've been in a position where I've been all over. I mean, I've when I got divorced from my first wife, it kind of closed the company because she kind of enjoyed the company and the whole thing. And I'm not trying to badmouth her, but I'm trying to say I didn't have any income, and I had to get something going, so I cleaned up restaurants at night. You know, I was swabbing toilets and cleaning the food holder things with vinegar and newspaper and doing all that stuff. And then I had about 6 or 7 restaurants, and I was making a lot of money. You know, and I'd do them every night. I'd go around, and so I'll go out and do anything if I need money, as long as nobody's shooting at you. It's not bad, you know. I've run companies. It's okay. None of them went bankrupt. A couple of them did really good. But it's just, there's something about, there you are in your office, and then somebody comes in from the back, and, you know, and it's Fred, I'm making a name up, and he's saying, I don't want to sit next to Holly anymore. And it's just that kind of shit I hate.
Yeah.
But I love people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm still, you know, my job at Schiit now, really, in terms of, I'm the company chaplain. You know, when something's going on, somebody's having trouble, take care of it. Or if somebody's working themselves silly and doesn't realize what's wrong, that they're too busy. Because, you know, it's amazing how people can't see what's wrong. I'll go out and hire somebody. You know, it's just, that's what I do. I'm the troubleshooter. That's all I am, and that's good enough for me because it makes me feel good when somebody's happy. Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that are really good engineers in audio, and then not so great at, you know, at other aspects of running a business. It's kind of a common thing, I think, a lot of times. Is there anything that makes an engineer really special that kind of makes them not good at other things for some reason in your mind? Because you seem to be very acute at both fields. You can run a company, you can get into the nitty gritty. You're a very smart individual, but like that's more of a rarity, I think, among people that are very technically inclined a lot of times.
Yeah, and Jason's that way too.
Yeah,
you see, and I think that may be one of the things that attract us to each other because, well, I've been sick, so he filled in for me, and if something happens, he knows I have his back. It's odd because engineers are usually too technical, and the problem, I think, is people's self-absorption. Engineers are so self-absorbed that they want to build a duck-billed platypus, 8 horsepower, motor-driven, whatever that flashes red and green lights because that's what he likes. Then the marketer thinks,
right?
Oh, well, Zap audio and fuckstick audio and beer audio are all, you know, doing well with blah and blah. So make me a blah and blah that everybody else is making, and we'll kick ass. And Jason, you know, had his own marketing company. He's a brilliant marketer. If you get self-absorbed, all you got to do is look at the other guy and see how much of you is in him, and you'd be amazed how much it is if you spend enough time with them and listen to what they have to say, because that's how I learned to run companies.
Yeah, I think we could all do better to listen to to each other some more.
I'm willing to listen, and I'm sure I have moments of self-absorption. I'm my own favorite subject.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's, yeah. So anyway, that's the deal. And, you know, whether I build products that are satisfying to me because, okay, I'll say this. I remember when I went to my first CES and Saul Morantz was there and Peter Walker were there at a bar having a beer, talking to each other. I got in a conversation with Peter Walker, and it's like me and God, you know, the quad designer, quad electrostatic loudspeaker. I forget the exact question I asked him, but it was something like, what makes an audio system good? And he says, well, it should just sound like the original, whatever, you know, somebody's playing a violin, it should sound like a violin. If somebody's doing a big whatever, it should sound like a big whatever. And he said the purpose of a system is to duplicate, not enhance or, oh, it's got big bass, man. None of that stuff. And he was right, and I learned that from him when I was 20s. So, wow, what a ride. It's been fun. I can always say that I've had a hell of a time. I've had some miserable times, but my work, for the most part, except when I got drafted, I didn't like that work much, has been my own choice. Maybe it's lack of fear. And, I don't want to sound like a preacher, because I really don't. I'm not into that. But you either have faith in something, whether it's yourself, or, religious people, it's a God or whatever. If you have faith, you have a whole lot less fear. And the faith, you just got to go and, just get out there and commit. And most of the time when I commit, it works. Sometimes it doesn't, So I'm glad I'm here. I'm going to be here for a while. And keep building products.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And I for one, I appreciate all the products that you've produced over the years, and it has been quite a ride. I think it's a great honor to talk to you and all of the icons that have helped shape the industry to what they are, today, and kind of capture what their stories are as we kind of move on to another chapter. I mean, how do you kind of take in all the changes coming to digital? I mean, this has been quite a revolution in just with the streaming that's coming in just like the past 5 years. What do you make of all the changes, and what do you kind of maybe see as the next step, or what do you appreciate about what we've gotten going so far? I mean, was streaming from an outside source always on your radar when you guys were building those DACs back in the CD players, or was it always just like, we'll have physical media?
I knew that if I built the engine right, okay, and had gradients of the engine, cheap, middle, best, that I could always put sockets around it. Because what changes is not how it's working. What changes are the sockets, because the sockets have gone from SPDIF to USB. So that much I knew even back in the 80s.
When you first got your hands on those, or you saw the CD coming out, did you think a change was coming, or when you heard it, did you immediately know that it was terrible?
Oh, I immediately knew it was terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can barely remember the CD coming out, but I think a lot of people just thought the track skipping was such a cool feature compared to a record. But you were definitely one of the people where you put it on, you're like, oh my God, there's a mistake being made here somewhere.
Yeah. There are people that, one goal is listening to music, one goal is going to Irvine. I made that up, okay. And you can go to Irvine in cars that you really like all the way, okay? And you can go listen to music in a system that you really like all the way. And I don't think all people emotionally respond to music. I do. And when I hear something I really like, I get chills, I go, wow, that was really fucking good, man.
Yeah, definitely think that's true. There are people I've met who the fidelity doesn't matter. They get the equal parts joy from music, regardless of the face of fidelity in between them and the song.
Yeah.
And I never slight those people. I think it's maybe even a blessing if I can get maximum joy from just any source. That would be at least cheaper.
I don't know whether it's they can hear it and don't care, or they can't hear it. Probably both. There's 20% of this way and 40% of this way, and but I'm obsessed with it. I was listening to Tristan and Isolde this morning, and it's very much a love story about a love that can't happen, and I just had chills halfway through it, and it lasts for 75 minutes times 3, 225 minutes, almost 4 hours. I listened to the whole thing, and I know everything that happens all the way, and I just love the music. I love its complexity. I love the harmonies. I love the according to which version it is, the singers. It's just absolutely amazing, and I just get chills.
Well, thanks again for coming on the show. And
no problem.
Anything you want to add at the end of the episode here?
Hey, if you like music, good on you. I understand it. I have the same disease. And you know what? There's a lot of worse diseases, I can tell you.
The Occasional Podcast is a production of the Part-Time Audiophile Network, which includes PartTimeAudiophile.com, The Occasional Magazine, the PTA Newsletter, and AudioHead.com. You can stay in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The Occasional Podcast is produced and hosted by Brian Hunter, executive produced by Scot Hull at PTA Productions. If you haven't already, please subscribe to The Occasional Podcast on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.